Hey folks, it's Mr. Portland Landlord here, your friendly neighborhood landlord who's spent way too many evenings on the phone with fellow Portland area property owners sorting out the fallout from a bad lease clause or a missing addendum. If you own or manage rentals in the Portland metro or anywhere across Oregon, you already know how quickly a single poorly worded sentence can turn a smooth tenancy into an eviction, a small claims headache, or worse, a BOLI complaint. With 2026 bringing fresh tweaks, like updated squatter language from HB 3522, new USPS postmark realities, and tighter habitability disclosures, now's the perfect time to make sure every document you hand a tenant is truly bulletproof. Let's walk through the full workflow together, the same way I teach it in our PAROA classes. We'll cover why DIY drafting is a gamble, the must-have 2026 clauses and disclosures, a complete addendums and forms checklist, and the step-by-step process that keeps you compliant while protecting your income and your sanity. Along the way, I'll share anonymized helpline examples because we all learn best from someone else's oops, and a couple of tables to make the information stick. And yes, there will be a light-hearted jab or two, because if we can't laugh at how complicated this stuff gets, we're all going to cry. First, let's be honest. Drafting your own leases, addendums, and forms from scratch is risky. Really risky. One missing comma, one outdated disclosure, or one clause that accidentally discriminates, and you're staring at an unenforceable notice, or a tenant who now has leverage in court. Helpline logs show lease and form-related questions consistently rank in the top 3 year-round, with a sharp spring spike every turnover season. Hundreds of calls about late fee wording, pet policies, utility reubs calculations, move-in-out checklists, and termination notices. The smarter alternative: start with the comprehensive, annually updated PAROA ORHA forms library. These are battle-tested by thousands of Oregon landlords and reviewed by attorneys who live and breathe ORS Chapter 90. Joining PAROA unlocks the member discount on the full set. Property management companies can also license the entire library for direct integration into your software with unlimited printing rights each year. Getting signatures on a bulletproof lease really does give you peace of mind in writing. Why do bulletproof leases matter so much here in Portland Metro in 2026? Oregon's residential landlord-tenant law, ORS Chapter 90, is the backbone. But 2026 layers on specifics you ignore at your peril. Required disclosures now include the usual suspects: lead-based paint for pre-1978 units, carbon monoxide and smoke detector statements, and non-smoking designations, plus fresh privacy and habitability language. Portland-specific rules add another layer. You must disclose local ordinances on utilities, parking, and guest limits right up front. Rent cap notices, that 9.5% max for qualifying 2026 increases on older properties, must be crystal clear. And every lease needs ironclad language referencing the latest squatter and unauthorized occupant provisions from HB 3522. High-impact lease clauses deserve special attention. Late rent and partial payment rules must spell out exact grace periods, daily late fees capped by statute, and what happens if a tenant sends a partial check. Utility billing, whether RUBS, sub-metering, or flat fees, needs its own clear formula and a separate addendum, so there's zero room for "I thought it was included" arguments. Guest and occupancy limits protect your insurance and habitability standards without crossing into family status discrimination. Maintenance responsibilities should list exactly what the tenant handles, like light bulbs and smoke detector batteries, versus what you cover. And pet language must carefully distinguish ordinary pets from assistance animals under fair housing rules. Essential addendums turn a good lease into a fortress. Here's your 2026 checklist. Pet and assistance animal policy with reasonable accommodation language, rules and regulations covering noise, parking, trash, common area use, smoking designation, parking assignment, unauthorized occupant, and squatter language updated per HB 3522, and utility billing addendum with RUBS formula or sub-meter details. Make sure you reference each addendum by name and date in the main lease. Have tenants initial every page and obtain separate signatures. One helpline caller last spring lost a termination case because their pet addendum wasn't explicitly incorporated. Lesson learned. Every landlord also needs a complete forms inventory, the rental application and screening packet, That's fair housing compliant, move-in, and move-out inspection checklists with mandatory photo and video protocol and tenant initials, all termination and notice templates, and full disclosure packets. Digital storage in a tenant portal makes enforcement easy and creates that perfect paper or pixel trail. Here's the step-by-step drafting and management process I recommend. Number 1. Choose your base templates. The PAROA ORHA rental agreement is the gold standard. 2. Layer in property-specific customizations like address, unit details, rent amount, utility method. 3. Integrate 2026 updates. Squatter language, new habitability and privacy disclosures, rent cap notice if applicable. 4. Decide digital versus paper workflow. E-signatures and tenant portals speed everything up while creating automatic audit trails. 5. Build your enforcement playbook so every notice ties straight back to a specific lease clause or addendum, and judges see a clean, defensible record. Common DIY mistakes show up on the helpline constantly. One landlord used a generic online lease that allowed reasonable late fees. Courts tossed it because what they thought would be considered reasonable was above the amounts Oregon caps them at. Another forgot to reference the rules and regs addendum in the main lease body. The tenant claimed they never agreed to the no-smoking policy and won on a fair housing technicality. A third failed to use a move-out checklist without photo documentation and lost the entire security deposit dispute. Standardized forms prevent every one of these exact problems because they're already vetted for every local nuance and legislative change. And now a couple shameless plugs. If you're tired of reinventing the wheel and paying for it in court, Northwest Rental Property Management, NWRPM, handles full-service property management or targeted eviction processing for Portland Metro and Central Oregon owners. Our team stays ahead of every 2026 update so you don't have to, whether it's drafting compliant notices or navigating a squatter situation under the new HB 3522 rules. Visit www.nwrpm.com to see how we take the legal and operational headaches off your plate. PAROA membership gives you instant access to the latest landlord forms, discounted legal education, and a community of owners who've already solved the problems you're facing. In a softer rental market, having ironclad documents up front is your best defense and your fastest path to peace of mind. All right, let's get back to it. Your complete 2026 addendums and forms checklist. Never miss a required clause again. Photo documentation and tenant initialing are non-negotiable. Snap time-stamped pictures at move-in and move-out. Have the tenant sign off on the spot and store everything digitally. It turns he said, she said into here's the evidence, Your Honor. In the end, bulletproof leases aren't about being adversarial. They're about setting clear expectations so good tenants stay happy and problem tenants have no wiggle room. If you don't want to take on the legal and financial risk of custom drafting, the PAROA ORHA library, with member discounts and management company licensing available, is the low-risk default used by thousands of Oregon landlords. Hey, what's the biggest lease or form headache you've run into as a Portland area landlord? Drop it in the comments below. I read everyone, and it helps us all learn. Hey, if you're a Portland area landlord, come join the community over at www.paroa.org. We've got education, forms, networking, and we fight for your rights at the legislature. And for owners in the Portland Metro or Central Oregon looking for hassle-free management, check out the pros at www.nwrpm.com.